Welcome to our executive interview series at AWS Innovate Day, presented by FedScoop. I'm Wyatt Cash, and we're here with Shane Barney, Chief Information Security Officer at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Shane, thank you as always for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So one of the questions I'd like to start with is, where are you seeing signs that AI is really helping accelerate agency efforts and your agency's efforts to establish zero trust practices?
It's a great question. So if you look at the broad umbrella that is AI, so AI covers everything from Microsoft Office spell check all the way to the most advanced generative solutions that are out there in large language models. We're not leveraging large language models, generative AI, for anything security yet. I foresee that coming. I know that's probably coming. I don't think we can avoid it even if we wanted to. More importantly, from an adversarial perspective, it's going to be critical. But somewhere in the middle, there's the machine learning piece, there's neural nets, neural net learning, all of which technologies we've actually been using for quite some time. And machine learning has been very critical to what we do. We as an organization are cloud heavy. We take in tens of terabytes of data per day in just logs, more than any person could ever hope to go through. Machine learning has been critical to how we engage that data and how we assess it, analyze it, and do predictive analytics about it. And we started deploying that in 2016. And on top of that, we've also been leveraging behavioral analytics on endpoints. We started doing that post SolarWinds, as for all the obvious reasons, which again it's a form of AI. It's not the really fancy schmancy generative stuff, but that behavioral analytics is how you detect those sort of minute changes in your environment, or detect the changes, especially on the user side of a user doing something that normally wouldn't do, whether they're logging in a weird place or a weird time, or doing something even within the activity scope that they normally would do out of sequence. Detecting that level of detail is really critical. And we've also been using learning models to do spam filtering, and we've been doing that for several years. So in terms of achieving zero trust, it is actually bedrock to what we do in zero trust. That became the foundation for a lot of the identity management pieces that we do. We use it to kind of monitor our workflows and watching what users are say they're going to do versus what they really do or are doing. All of that's done with this machine learning principles and practices, and then a lot of data analytics on the back end.
And then what role would you say AI and automation are playing in strengthening your agency's overall cyber resilience?
So cyber resilience it's a new word. I love the term actually because of what it implies. Cyber resilience is the assumption that your agency is going to at some point collapse due to a cyber attack or fail to meet its mission. And resilience is all about how quickly can you achieve, get back to operations based on that. It basically assumes failure from a CISO's perspective, which I appreciate because I assume the same. I'm paranoid that way. But AI in that factor, one of the things we really are we'd love to start utilizing AI for, and we're not yet, is leveraging it as an attack scenario. One of the interesting things that generative AI does, and some of the other solutions that are coming from an adversarial perspective, is one, it's relentless. It's 365, 24/7. And if you set parameters and you say, listen, within these two goalposts, I want you to achieve your objective, which would be this database or this particular file or whatever you're sending it after, it's going to do everything in its power, everything within its constraints to achieve that. And it's probably going to think outside the box and do things that you normally wouldn't see. In terms of resilience, that's the prediction right there. And we assume at some point an attacker is going to get in. We assume at some point we're going to be compromised, and we have to be able to respond to that, clean up mitigate whatever happened, and then still get back to operations to meet mission. If we're able to do that in a test environment or even a semi-pseudo real environment, and then plan accordingly, that just makes us that much more successful. That is very tip of the iceberg type of stuff. Nobody's really doing it yet. USCIS, to my leadership's credit, has really said, hey, AI is the future for immigration. Not that we are going to use it to do immigration benefit issuance. We're not doing that. But in terms of aiding the organization to achieve its mission, it's going to be central. At the same time, they recognize how much of a threat AI poses to what we do. And so they said, well, it's important, therefore you fund what's important, and have offered up funding not just next fiscal year, but this fiscal year. And so we're already in the process of putting in an AI gateway to help manage some of those principles, those things, to actually providing overarching sort of umbrella for our activities. The gateway does two things. One, it's going to help us manage the bias. It's going to help us, do prompt engineering and help us do some of that preventative activities up front. At the same time, monitor all that information flowing in and out, making sure that the models that they're assessing are going after, because most of these models are going to exist outside of our environment, making sure they're only going to the ones that we've approved or know about or understand. At the same time, monitoring the data flow going back and forth and doing rate limiting, because one of the things you can get yourself in a lot of trouble for is the costs. And so having that gateway in place and then building on top of that a data platform that does one of the most critical pieces of AI that nobody's really talking about and really needs to start talking about is doing data lineage and data provenance, which is really establishing where your data is created, who touches it, how is it altered, where it's changed, how it's updated, and how it eventually goes to, I'm not going to say die, but archived. And that whole life cycle. Those are all meta tags that are utilized within AI spaces to do good AI. So having that and having that information at our fingertips and building out that infrastructure now, because AI is an infrastructure. It is ever more, just as much as an infrastructure as cloud was, as a data center is. It's going to require that level of investment. It's going to require that level of expertise from a workforce perspective. And it's going to require an entirely new set of monitoring capabilities that we simply don't have yet. So my organization, to their credit, is heading in that direction, and at lightning speed, of course, because we wouldn't do it any other way.
Well, if I can ask one more question.
Absolutely.
Being that you were among the early adopters of cloud, I'm curious your perspective today as the big cloud providers continue to kind of roll out new data centers. There's new chips capabilities, new hardware capabilities, which fosters new software development as well. What's your sense of where we are with cloud computing for government?
Well, government hasn't fully embraced it yet. I mean, they have in parts. And if you walk into most, USCIS is 100% cloud, and we have been for quite a while. And we threw our lot in there for a very long time ago. We embraced it, and honestly, it's been one of the biggest mission drivers for us that you could possibly ever come up with. Other organizations, and I respect their missions, because different missions require different sets. Mission cloud isn't right for everybody. I could definitely see DoD not always needing a cloud environment, but needing cloud-like functionality in more of a localized format. I see cloud as an accelerator for a lot of things. Now, AI is an interesting mix into all this, because AI is cloud is the birthplace of AI. I mean, it's the only way you can really do it. There are so-called prem solutions, but they're very, very limited. Not nearly as capable as some of these big learning models that they have. And so AI is really cloud is really going to accelerate that. I think it's going to be very tempting for a lot of government organizations who aren't in cloud yet to jump into cloud, feet first, without thinking, just so they can utilize that. And that would be risky. As an organization that did just that, I can tell you the pitfalls. I could probably write a book about it. We made a ton of mistakes along the way, but we were fortunate enough at the time that cloud wasn't a major threat vector for a lot of attacks that were coming at the government. And so we just sort of got lucky. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. And what I will say, though, that's no longer the case. I mean, cloud is a major threat vector for a lot of, especially for the federal space and private industry. So if you don't know what you're doing and you start playing in that arena, you're going to get yourself in trouble. I think that, really, I'm not as worried about what large language models are going to do to us. I think we can figure that out and do risk management, and I think we'll be fine. I'm actually kind of worried about what comes next. Right now that there's two big limiting factors to AI. One of them is storage capacity. They'll solve that, to your point. They're building data centers faster than anything else. But the other one is compute power. Now, computing power is not directly tied to the number of data centers you have. It's a factor, but not as the same as storage. There are a lot of limitations. It's power, it's cooling, a lot of things that go into that. But what if we add quantum into that? What does quantum technologies do in terms of accelerating what AI is capable of doing? That's, again, it's going to be like all things AI. There's best of times, the worst of times. It is going to enable things on the mission side that we probably can't even envision yet. And that, as a mission individual and someone who really loves mission, that's amazing for me. I love that. From a threat perspective, frightening. And that's why I'm so adamant about us getting AI security right now. We need to lay the foundation and the bedrock for what comes next. Because anything that comes after this is going to be built on what's currently there. So if we can start learning to manage the risks that we understand today, it's going to make managing the risks for tomorrow all that much better.
Well, Shane Barney, always interesting to hear your perspective and insights, and thank you in particular for joining us here at AWS Innovate Day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.